All right, so he was the greatest kicker in Saints history. He was arguably the greatest kicker in NFL history. He retired as the all-time leading scorer in NFL history. He is Morten Andersen.
What's up, guys? This is Mike Carney.
This is Toy Cook.
I'm Randy Mueller.
This is Quinn Early.
I'm Delvin Bro.
I'm Alex Molden.
I'm Jake Cup. And this is Life of a Saint.
And this is Life of a Saint.
And this is Life of a Saint.
The Life of a Saint.
Life of a Saint.
Life of a Saint.
And this is Life of a Saint. Whodat?
All right, so Morten, to get things started, what was it like growing up on the other side of the pond in Denmark?
It was a pretty normal childhood, actually. Sports, basically, I'm taking it back to the 60s, early 70s, so there was no World Wide Web or internet, so it was, you're out playing the whole day. And you come in when it's dark, and when you got hungry. That was pretty much, that's completely foreign to kids today, but that's what it was. It was a simpler time that way, and just being with friends, and if there was a ball involved, we were good,
Gotcha.
And then, of course, later on, when we got interested in the girls, that changed a little bit, and time was used, differently. Ball was still important, but, less.
Right. I get it.
But it was a great time. I grew up in a family. My father was a psychologist. My mother was a teacher and a librarian. And so we grew up with academics. That was important. It was important to speak foreign languages. It was important to travel and to experience other cultures, try different food. We always had once a week, we had a, exotic food night where we had to try something, snails. It could be anything. It could be, what is this? I don't want to eat this. It's from Peru, and it's some indigenous, some food from different countries. So I think my brother and I I have a twin brother. We were exposed to a lot of different cultures, languages, and stuff from an early age, and I think, really, quite honestly, that's helped me along the way. So, yeah, it was 17 great years in Denmark, and then I came to the U.S. as an exchange student in 1977.
So what went into the decision to come to the United States?
Yeah, that was a collaborative effort, but probably more a push from my parents. I mean, they were seeing that I was heavily involved in sports, and I was a really good soccer player. I was a very good team handball player, which is, an Olympic sport, and it's very popular in Europe. I probably could have gone that route and become a professional. But they really felt it was important for me to, try something else for 10 months. And that was the intent. Go to the U.S. for 10 months, learn the language, immerse yourself in the American culture, and live with an American family. And, oh, by the way, we'll have an American student living with us in your room while you're gone.
Gotcha.
So, and that's what happened. So I don't think what any of us had accounted for was the fact that I fell in love with the country and the American dream. And here I am, 1977 to 2020, 43 years later, still here.
I wasn't going to do the math, but
43 years and a U.S. citizen now. So
gotcha. That's awesome.
I don't think that was the plan. The plan was 10 months back home, finish my studies, continue my sports, and so forth. But fate would have it differently, and I'm glad. I'm very happy with the decision, and I love this country. I think it's the greatest country on earth. I've said that when I became a U.S. citizen. We can agree to disagree on a lot of things, but at the end of the day, if you have talent and will and you want to work for it, this is the country to be in. You can go for your dreams and make it happen, and I'm a living, breathing example of that.
So as an exchange student, you head over from Denmark and land in the home of the Baker family, and as I understand it, they're the ones that introduced you to football, correct?
Yeah, they did. They introduced me to, the team needed a kicker, the high school team, and they didn't have a soccer program, which is what I really wanted to play, but they didn't have one, so that eliminated that possibility. And so the next thing was, well, try this. So I tried that. It worked out pretty good. I had to sit out 10 practices. I mean, I couldn't play a game until there was some kind of probation for a transfer student when he comes in, I guess. So I had to practice 10 times. So I think I missed one game. And then as soon as I had my obligatory 10 or 20 practices, I was the kicker, because that was it. They had the head coach, Bob Wilbur, was a huge influence. His son, Tim Wilbur, was the quarterback and also the safety, and he went on to IU and was a stud down with the Hoosiers. But anyway, they didn't want him to kick, so I filled that obligation, and he could concentrate on being the star quarterback and safety, and I was the kicker, and we had a great team. We were very good.
Gotcha.
And it came easily. I mean, it wasn't like I kicked 50-yarders right away, although when I did try out, I think I actually did hit a 50-yard field goal.
Doesn't surprise me.
It went very quickly, and I had to get used to the new shape of the ball. It wasn't round, and had to get used to 11 guys coming at me, snorting and spitting and so forth and screaming. And I had to get used to the equipment. The only jersey available to me was 42, because all the other jerseys were taken. That was kind of a unique number for a kicker. Usually we have lower numbers. So I was 42 all year for the Purple Giants.
Were you surprised how easily football came to you?
I don't think I gave it much thought, John. I think I just kind of went with it. When you're 17 years old, you're kind of just like pedal to the metal.
Gotcha.
Let's see where this thing takes me. I wasn't really thinking about. I wasn't thinking beyond the next day. I was just living in the moment, I think. And one thing I knew, I had the discipline because I had the discipline from my sports back home. So I knew that part. I knew how to practice. I knew how to. Once I made up my mind, that was it. I was focused on that. The studying really was secondary because I had already graduated high school in Denmark, so it was like an extra year. Okay. Yeah, it was an extra year. I mean, I did take the SAT to get into Michigan State later, but it wasn't an issue. School came very easy to me. Basically, what I learned in 12th grade in high school in America, I had learned in 10th grade in Denmark.
So when it came time for college, what made you choose Michigan State?
Well, it was a Danish kicker there named Hans Nielsen. And Hans was the kicker there, had done it for 4 years. And he had grown up in a Danish town about an hour and a half from my Danish town. I didn't know him from back home. But when I found out that there was a Danish college kicker coming to recruit me, I got very excited because we could speak the language. Gotcha. And when I went on my official visit to Michigan State, he hosted me. I mean, they weren't dumb,
Of course.
So they put me with him, and I had a ball that weekend, and I decided then I was going to become a Michigan State Spartan.
What are some of your favorite memories from Michigan State?
Well, we beat Michigan.
It's always good.
And that was that was important. Beating Michigan in Ann Arbor, 24-15, and I had important field goal, and Kirk Gibson, Eddie Smith, my freshman year was the Big Ten leading scorer. We scored a bunch, and being with Gibby and being with that great team was really fun. And unfortunately, we never went to the Rose Bowl. We were on probation, but beating Michigan and winning the Big Ten in 1978 was probably a highlight as far as the sports end of it. And then just the college experience to me was just dynamic, and you grow in those 4 years. You grow so much in every way, and living in a city like East Lansing with 44,000 undergrad students. I mean, you can imagine. So I don't know. I'm sure you went to college somewhere fun, right, John? So you can just kind of take yourself back there. That's what. And then being a student athlete, and being from a foreign country didn't hurt. So it was a really fun time, obviously. And our first year was great, and then we didn't play really well in the next 3 years. But I still, I developed personally I got to a high level, became an All-American, and, still have the Big Ten record for longest field goal. So, that's not too bad after, 40 years.
So between sports and scholastics, it seemed like a lot of things came pretty easy to you. But if you had to pick, what was the toughest thing you had to overcome in your road to the NFL?
I think that the toughest part for me about kicking was all the downtime, all the free time you had, all the sideline time. So putting that sideline routine into a disciplined kind of approach where your mind didn't wander, and then, oh shit, I got to go on the field and perform. There was so much. There were long breaks in the game of inactivity where I still had to pay attention. Meaning, when I played soccer and handball, I was a gymnast. I was fully involved all the time in the game. But here, I was literally a specialist, somebody who was plugged in maybe 10, 12 times a game. And learning that when I was on there, it was really important usually because points were going on the board or not. So learning that, learning the magnitude of the situation and how to calm yourself in those moments and use your energy wisely on the sideline. I think that probably was, to me, the most challenging. And once I got that into a system and was able to put that into a kind of a structure and a routine, I think I managed it better.
Gotcha.
But I think that took the longest, and I think a lot of young guys struggle with that. The sideline routine and then that the transit from the sideline to the game, putting the hard hat on, and then your pre-kick routine, and then being in the moment and performing in a very short period of time. I mean, 1.2 seconds from snap to kick, and it's over. Very intense, very short, has to be very precise, counting on other guys to do their thing, and then but trusting that you get the result that you're looking for. And then also when you don't get the result, dealing with that and coping with the fact that, one kick doesn't define you, but that you have to perform on the next one, and the next one might be the game winner. Just because you missed one in the first quarter doesn't mean that the one in the fourth quarter is not as important. They are all very important, and that I think that was hard.
Gotcha.
But once I wrapped my brain around the fact that that was what I signed up for, then I wouldn't say it ever became easy, but I could manage it.
I know it's tough to pick one person, but who would you say was the biggest influence in ultimately helping you get to the NFL?
I mean, Hans was a big influence in me, like making the leap from high school to college. So I have to give him a lot of credit. He a lot of guidance there, my freshman year in college, because he was still there in graduate school. And then Coach Rogers and Coach Baker up there at Michigan State. From high school, I mean, what I'm telling you is it's not one guy, it's several guys, along the way. It was Coach Wilbur in high school and really my host dad, Dale Baker, and some of the teachers, Mrs. Miller, who was my exchange student coordinator. She was in charge of the foreign exchange students, and she spent a lot of time with us,
Gotcha.
And so if there was an issue with the family or whatever, she would talk to us, So there were a lot of people along the way that helped at different stages,
Understood.
It's hard to just point to one person.
So if you look at the draft now, or even back then, not a lot of specialists got drafted. Did you think you were going to get drafted? And I guess more importantly, what was it like when you got that call?
Well, it was expected because I was the best kicker at the time in the nation. So I knew I was probably going to get drafted. We just didn't know when. I didn't know if it was going to be in the second round, third round, fourth round, or not at all. I mean, we knew we were going to get drafted. I think back then there was 12 rounds. Now we have 7, but back in the 80s, I think we had 12 rounds of draft picks. So I just didn't know I was going to get drafted by the Saints. That was the surprise. Never had any conversation with them. Had a lot of conversation with Gil Brandt in Dallas, had a lot of conversation with, the Bears and just people around the Midwestern teams, Detroit, a lot of letters from them, a lot of conversations with Dallas. And I don't know if that was just they had that wide web where they grabbed everybody because Gil was so advanced, he kind of invented the scouting system, you know what I mean? The combine. That was Gil Brandt. And Gil was, he was with Landry and Tex Schramm at the time in Dallas. So maybe that's why I heard so much. Or maybe they really liked me, but I wasn't around whenever. I don't know what happened. I mean, I never had a conversation really with him about it or anybody else. But New Orleans, I had to look on a map and say, where the hell's New Orleans? Well, I've heard, I heard Louis Armstrong, I heard jazz, but I mean, it almost seemed like a foreign country to me, So I said, well, I'm going somewhere hot, that's for sure. And I knew about the Superdome when I looked it up and said, okay, I've heard of Superdome, But the Saints were terrible. They weren't very good. I think the year before I got there, they were wearing bags on their head when they were 1-15. And, the fans were calling themselves the Aints and all that stuff. So I wasn't really thrilled about that part,
So when you arrived in New Orleans, who were some of those guys that really made an early impression on you?
Well, Archie Manning made a huge impression on me because he was there, and that was his last year with the Saints. He actually got traded to Houston my rookie year. So just watching Archie and how he was such a legend, he was bigger than life. I mean, Archie was bigger than life in New Orleans, still is, the Manning family and so forth. So, and then Bum Phillips was great, and my coach, Harold Richardson. So there were a lot of guys that kind of took me under their wing and, kind of told me what to do, what to expect, and what they expected from me. And, Bum was great that way. He made it very comfortable. He made it very comfortable, and so it was. It wasn't a very good first year for me. Actually, I got hurt on the opening kickoff. I had a bad preseason, and I have to credit Bum with sticking with me because he could have easily given up on me because they hadn't had a lot of success drafting kickers. They had taken Russell Erxleben a couple of years earlier with their first pick. As a kicker punter, and that didn't pan out, and then Russell became the punter, when I replaced Benny Ricardo, and it just never worked out with Russell Erxleben down there.
Gotcha.
And then when I started performing poorly my rookie year in preseason, I don't know what was going through their mind. They were probably thinking, oh, shit, here we go again, or whatever, I don't know. But I had a breakout year in 83 after the strike year. 82 was a strike year, so we didn't really play a lot of games, and I got hurt. I was out 8 weeks anyway. Tore my ligaments in my ankle on the opening kickoff. So it was very unlucky and just a terrible start for me, and I thought I might be gone before I even had a chance to show them that I could do anything. But 83 came around, and then I had a really good year. I had 3 game winners that year. And I think they realized, okay, that's why we drafted the guy,
Right.
And then we're off and running, and I made 4 Pro Bowls in a row in the mid '80s. I think 86, 7, 8, 9. I made 4 in a row there. You can look it up. I think it was 86, 7, 8, 9,
for sure.
or 8, or close anyway. But so the train was rolling, and turned out to be a pretty good run in New Orleans, 13 years.
So here's a question I love asking guys from your era. What was it like going from Bum Phillips to Jim Mora?
That's like eating a cupcake, and then now you got to eat liverwurst. We went from kind of a country club to boot camp. Absolutely brutal because the ownership changed too. And Meekum, John Meekum was fantastic and spent money on the players, and we had really good training camp in Vero Beach, great food and seafood, and it was very, we worked, but it was relaxed too. It was fun.
Right.
That changed with Jim Mora, you know. It was not fun with Jim Mora because we hadn't had the results. So, and that's no fault of his, you know, I'm not blaming Jim Mora. There had to be a culture change because we weren't winning, and Jim Mora was put in place with Jim Finks to win by Tom Benson, the new owner.
Right.
So, you know, it was on Jim to change the culture and make it his. And he did, you know, for better or worse. You know, I thought he worked us too hard during the season, so when we got to the playoffs, we were tired.
Yeah.
You know, that's just my opinion.
I've heard that before.
He may disagree with me. I don't know. He may disagree with me, but I like Jim. You know, Jim and I got along great. I performed well. I had great years with him. Shit, we won a ton of games together, you know. And I think the Saints won more games over a 5-year stretch than anybody in the NFL. We just didn't win in the playoffs.
Right.
And that's what was the shame of it, because we were really good. We had 4 great linebackers in Sam Mills, Pat Swilling, you know, Ricky Jackson, Vaughn Johnson. They called them the Dome Patrol. And they were badasses. They were great. You know, they were fantastic. And Bobby Abear was our quarterback for a long time. We had running. We were very good on defense. We ball controlled. We possessed the ball on offense. Didn't turn the ball over. We kicked a lot of field goals. We had a very good kicking game, very good return game, and we won more games, I think, in a 5-year stretch. Like I said, in the late '80s. You know, after Jim got there, and so you can't knock the way he did it. He did it the way he felt was the best to move the team forward, and he moved the team forward. I mean, he did. I was glad to be part of it because they used me as a weapon. I mean, I was used a lot, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
I was showcased in many ways, you know, and it was unusual for a kicker to have that much action, but they trusted me, you know, for the long balls and the big kicks, and that was my heyday for sure. You know, that run.
Did you ever feel like because you were such a lethal weapon and you were so successful that play calling as a result kind of got a little bit more conservative than it would have otherwise?
Well, I think the strategy was let's not F it up, you know, let's not screw it up down here. We got 3, and our defense is really good. So whether we win 9-6 or 30-27 is irrelevant as long as we win. So I think there was a tendency to, when we got into field goal range, let's not turn the ball over. Now, that's not to say that we weren't trying to get first downs and get touchdowns, but I think there was maybe sometimes we might have gone a little more conservative, you know, especially if we – it depends on the third down. If you're – you know, it's anything like if you're 3rd and 7 versus 3rd and 2, well, at 3rd and 2, the whole playbook book's available to you, but at 3rd and 7, you're limited. So if that's called conservative at 3rd and 7, knowing you have 3, I think most teams are not going to risk a turnover at 3rd and 7. But at 3rd and 2, you're going to be a little more creative because you can be. I knew that we got to the 40-yard line, you know, 60 yards and in, I felt pretty damn good about it. So I was ready. You know, I was like, hey, give me the ball. I'll go out there, you know.
I like it.
Because our defense, even if we missed a long kick, we felt our defense would be able to go 3 and out with what we had.
Of course.
You know, those linebackers.
Of course,
and that pass rush, So didn't really scare us.
So you spent over a decade in New Orleans. Is there anything that kind of jumps off the page as a favorite memory or something you look back pretty fondly on?
I mean, there's a lot of things, obviously, in you know, locker room, off the field, and things like that. But it's just more the relationships that you know, Bobby and I were born same year, same day, so we were good buds. We socialized a lot. Our wives, you know, I wasn't married at the time, but you know, the girls liked each other, hung out, and yeah, you know, you could go anywhere in New Orleans and get a good table, you know, let me put it that way.
Gotcha.
You wanted to go see some live music, that was available to you. You know, Jazz Fest, you want good, you know, everything was pretty much, you know, available.
Gotcha.
And I wouldn't say we took advantage of it, but we had fun. We had a lot of fun, and there was a lot of partying. But we worked hard too. So we tried to be smart about it. We had drivers, we had limousines, we did a lot of that. Gotcha. With the old Lincoln Continental stretches. We did a lot of that fun stuff.
Gotcha.
With drivers. That was a lot of fun. Awesome. But we were smart, because if we were going to have a cocktail, we're not drinking and driving. So
right.
That part was fun. But some of the games were fantastic. New Year's Eve when we beat the Rams was cool. On a field goal, we won, and then that was New Year's Eve. That was pretty good. The game was over, I think, around 10, 11 o'clock, and we rushed down to the French Quarter and just made it by the time to see midnight, So that was a lot of fun.
Another thing that New Orleans was famous for is having the longest field goal in NFL history, Tom Dempsey with a 63-yarder. Was that ever important to you going after that record?
Well, I would have loved to have tried it. I just never tried one. I think the furthest we tried was 60, and I made one and I missed one. I missed one against Tampa, and I made one against Chicago. I don't think we tried anything beyond 60 ever, so I just never had a chance.
Gotcha.
But I would have given it a go for sure had I had a chance.
Yeah, certainly had the leg for it.
But I was happy. Yeah, I was happy for Tom,
So as I recall, it wasn't a situation where you left New Orleans. It was you were cut in order to try and renegotiate your salary. What was it like going through that stuff as you exited New Orleans?
Yeah, they released me for cap reasons. They wanted to cut my salary 40%. I was making $1 million, and they had a guy named Chet Franklin who was their salary cap guy, and he felt, well, a kicker can't make $1 million. We got to take him to 600, and then we can go get some linebacker or somebody for the 400 that we're saving on Andersen, and that didn't sit well with me. I had 2 years left on my contract and felt like they had pushed me into a corner, and so I got pissed. My agent was able to make a quick deal with Atlanta, and we were gone.
Now
not the way the exit strategy was planned, but my hand was kind of forced.
So again, the Saints trying to get you at a discounted price. Cut you and were willing to roll the dice. You end up going to Atlanta. Was there any extra satisfaction in going to a division rival and being able to prove yourself against the team that just cut you?
Well, I did feel like I had, because I was told, it was said that I was a declining player and I couldn't hit the long ball anymore in 94, 95. And I hadn't had a great year in 94, but I was still under contract. And I certainly was not a declining player, which I proved in 95 when I became All-Pro again and hit 8 over 50 and 3 in a game against the Saints. So was there incentive to do well that year? Absolutely. Was there incentive to do well against my former team? Absolutely. But had it been another team, I would have done the same thing. I would have set out to prove that I wasn't a declining player. That was basically the impetus for the whole thing.
Looking back through your career, the thing that fascinates me the most is that 20-month gap that you had where you didn't know if you were going to come back. You were looking to sign on with somebody so that you could complete the quest, go after that scoring title. Take me through what that 20-month period was like for you.
Defining moments in your life, John, the defining moments and how do you handle them? And when you're young, that's God's cruel joke on us. When we're young and we get them, we don't have the perspective and wisdom to know what the hell to do with them. We just blaze right through them, and we may even miss them.
Right.
We may be standing at the train station, and the train goes right by us, and we don't get on. So that's the cruel joke of being young and immature and impulsive. So with age comes levity and wisdom, and I think the 20 months for me, and I didn't know at the time it was going to be 20 months. I thought it was going to be a few months and I would have a job, but the phone didn't ring for 20 months, So that's when your character and your will is tested, really, because, I'm not a spring chicken. I'm 45 years old. That's ancient. That's basically guys have been retired for a while in the NFL. Mm-hmm. But, I'm 77 points away from the NFL scoring record. and there were incentives, there were carrots out there. There were things to go get. There were reasons why I should continue. The most important is finishing on my terms. Most guys don't get to do it on their terms. Mm-hmm. So those were kind of the motivator for me was, again, to prove to everyone I wasn't finished. I wasn't too old to play at the highest level, and that and the legacy had to be that I wanted to be the leading scorer in the history of the game. That was important to me. Mm-hmm. That was a motivator. And so for those 20 months in that public park, although it was humiliating at times to have to defer that field to little leaguers and their parents looking at me crazy when I was wearing my uniform, Pro Bowl jersey and Falcons helmet and New York Football Giants pants. And I mean, because I played, Kenny Stabler shoulder pads, because I played in full gear. That's how I practiced. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they look and go, what's this nutbag doing? What is this crazy guy doing? Well, I was working towards something that was lifelong. To finish on my terms, and also to become like the leading scorer in the history of the game. Kind of a big deal to me. Right. So just kept going. And I know people thought I was absolutely bonkers, and my wife stuck with me. My kids stuck with me, family stuck with me, but there were friends that absolutely thought I was a lunatic, and that it was over. Imagine almost 2 years and the phone doesn't ring, and you go through a full season, and you're ready, and the phone doesn't ring, and nothing happens. And then you actually go into the second season, and now you haven't played since 2004, and you're now in 2006, and then 3 games in, the phone finally does ring, and you're ready. But what if you had not been grinding 20 months in a public park? Then that train leaves the station, and you're on the platform, right? Yeah. So that's the lesson. That's the takeaway for me, anyway, is that whatever is worth chasing, you chase it 100% until it's absolutely exhausted and empty. And, had it been another 20 months, I probably wouldn't have done it, But I would have seen 2006 through, and I probably would have tried it again in 2007. And then if I hadn't gotten a sniff there, then, it was over. But that didn't happen. 2006 came, and I won the job. I beat everybody that they put in front of me. I beat them.
So as you mentioned, you get re-signed. You're back. You're lining up for that kick that's going to set the record. Take me through that moment, what that was like for you.
Stop the game. I give my jersey. I get the ball. I give my jersey to my kid, who's, I think at the time he was, he was born, he was 8 years old. He was 7 years old, No front teeth, and Sebastian gets my jersey. My wife's there, and father-in-law, and everybody's there, and, come on. It's storybook shit.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I could I'm getting goosebumps thinking about
John.
the movie.
It's not given to you.
Right.
Yeah, but it's not given to you. It's not like they don't hand you those big moments. You have to earn those. Mm-hmm. That makes it even more special because of the grind and the suck. The world. I talk about the world suck a lot, and when your back's against the wall. My back was against the wall for 20 months. I was immersed in the world of suck. Probably not real fun to live with for 20 months. Probably be an asshole. Very selfish, self-absorbed, needy, kind of not feeling sorry for myself, but just closed in a little bit,
Understood.
Focused. Yeah, one of those. An asshole.
So with only one kicker in the Pro Football Hall of Fame before you got there, were you confident that you were going to get in?
I thought I had a good chance.
Okay.
I did think I had a good chance. And I think, looking back now, waiting 5 years was nothing. Because I look at guys, I look at Terrell Davis, 7 years. I look at Lid Swan. I look at some of the guys that waited. Some guys that should be in there that went over 20 years and fell to the senior list, so you just never know. But I was confident that I would get in based on my merits because of my years of service, 25 years, more games than anybody, 382, 360 consecutive games scoring. That's never going to be broken.
No way.
I don't see it happening. That's 22 and a half years without missing a game and scoring in every game in a row.
That's
And
bonkers.
then you're the leading score. And then you're the leading scorer in the game. So I think my numbers were there, and I was at 80% basically. So 8 out of 10 times I stepped on the field, we had success. Wasn't number one, wasn't the best, but when you put all those things together, I think you have a Hall of Fame resume compared to others at my position in the history of the game. And so the voters decided that was the case. It took them 5 years, but that's the conclusion they came to, and I'm thrilled, believe me. And I think we need more specialists. We need more guys in there, and I hope it comes. I hope we'll have a nice fraternity of guys in there who are very, very deserving.
So for many of the guys that play football, you start out as that little kid hoping someday to make it to the NFL. You get there, you play your entire career, make it to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And for a lot of guys, that's kind of the end of the road. But for you, it's something a little different. It seems like you've become an ambassador for some of the specialists that haven't yet gotten into the Pro Hall of Fame. Why is that so important to you?
Games are won by kickers and by specialists. The big return. Steve Tasker, blocking a kick, scooping and scoring, changed the momentum of the game big time. Mm-hmm. So you just and a powerful return guy, but points on the board is undeniable. And if you have a guy that's really good at it, Adam Vinatieri, who won Super Bowls with his foot and played a long time and is now the leading scorer, Jason Hanson in Detroit, Gary Anderson, the Nick Lowry, Eddie Murray. I mean, these are all guys in my mind that are deserving. Janikowski probably, and punters, Sean Landetta, Shane Leckler, Jeff Eagles.
Okay.
A lot of guys that are deserving, it's just there's a lot of guys knocking on the door. That's the problem.
Right.
But kickers it's undeniable that they play a huge role in the outcome of the games,
For sure.
So I know the quarterback's important. A shutdown corner is important, a great pass rusher, but you got to have a kicker that can deliver when you have to and win games, and some of those guys did it better than anybody, and I feel like we need to recognize that.
All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot, but if you had to pick one specialist that's not yet in the Hall of Fame, who would you pick to get in?
Well, you got to put Adam in there, I think.
Gotcha. That's fair.
I think it's Adam based on his big kicks in the Super Bowls and playing in New England in bad weather, making huge kicks in the snow, his longevity and consistency over a long period of time.
Gotcha.
So I think without question it's Adam. But I think there's Gary. I think there's other Jason Hanson. I think there's a lot of other guys deserving, that should be in there.
Yeah, for sure. I think Carney. I mentioned Carney before. I think Carney's one of them too. But
Carney for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know. Jason Elam. You would have to look at him. Mm-hmm. A lot of guys. There's really a lot of guys.
I was not going to allow you off this interview without talking to you about that music video and that song, Take It to the Top. What went into that whole decision to put that out?
Well, it's a standalone, so you tell me.
It's just like, if there's
it's iconic. It's legendary. I don't know what to say about it other than, it was a project that absolutely never should have come to fruition. No, listen. It's part of the fun. It's part of what you do as a young guy, and I've always wanted to be a rock star. Okay, and I just didn't have the pipes or the musical. I couldn't play an instrument, and I couldn't sing. Other than that, I think I would do great on stage. So So I would be a hell of a lip syncer, you know.
I was just well.
I could air guitar. I could air guitar and lip sync with the best of them, you know. I mean, Milli Vanilli would be proud of me, you know.
I definitely had to go there. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Have you heard it?
Yeah,
and
of course.
It has a music video.
Look,
and it has a music video.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, it's like it like sums up the '80s completely. It's like,
oh my God, it's like Flock of Seagulls, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is good stuff.
That's good.
That is good stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah, a lot of fun.
All right. So as a father myself, I thought it was pretty special that you got one of your sons involved in introducing you for your Hall of Fame speech. What went into that decision?
Yeah, that was really cool, and I thought Sebastian did a great job, you know, and it was offered to both Aiden and Sebastian, and Aiden's like, nah, Sebastian can do that. You know, Aiden was a little young, so, yeah, it was special just to share it with everybody, not just my sons, but my wife and lots of friends. We had a hell of a party. We had a really good time. Yeah, it was fun.
Well, there it is, episode 8 in the books. Morten Andersen, I can't thank that guy enough. He was actually my first favorite player. I was a soccer kid growing up, so once I started following football, Morten Andersen was the kicker. It kind of made sense why I understood what he was doing more than anybody else on the team. So thank you, Morten Andersen. Who dat, everybody. I appreciate you sticking it out. We'll see you on the next one.